Does having a spiritual life help to protect us against certain forms of mental illness? My guest on the forum last week, Lisa Miller, has made her life's work the study of this question. In the 1990s, when she was working in a psychiatric unit in New York City, several of her patients in a small group asked her to have a kind of Yom Kippur service for them. And she did that, and she noticed that many of them showed signs of improvement as a result of that service or after that service. She also noticed that many people who were suffering from acute depression, that there really were two different ways that she saw people treating them. They were either doing psychoanalysis, where they were talking about childhood trauma, in which case they were having a hard time seeing beyond a life of being a traumatized person, or they were given drugs. So she also wondered if there was a way of treating depression in another way. And so she was very interested in spirituality, but many of her fellow scientists frowned upon this area of inquiry. They thought spirituality wasn't an appropriate topic for scientific study. And then there was an incredible breakthrough in scientific technology that led to a new avenue of inquiry for her. The invention of MRI machines, the magnetic resonance machines that can see basically into our brains, gave her a new chance to study some of these questions in a new way. And so one of the things she did was she looked at survey results, and she compared people who described having a spiritual and religious life, the brains of those people, with the brains of other people, and saw that there really was development in certain areas of the brain that was identifiable as being connected to a religious or spiritual life. Another test that she did, another experiment that she did that was very interesting, was she would basically induce a kind of religious spiritual experience among people while they were in an MRI machine, and notice how that affected the blood flow to different areas of the brain. So the way they did this was they asked them to tell them a story about a spiritual experience they had, and then they were read back that experience while they were in the machine. Now this is a very important question, because mental illness is such a profound epidemic proportion in our society, especially among young people. Mental illness has become far more prevalent among young people, especially as new devices like cell phone technology have been introduced to that group. And so there are roughly 30% of American adults are going to develop an anxiety disorder at some point in their life. There are 242 million people in the world who are suffering from depression. It's the third most expensive disease. And so the idea that a spiritual life can protect us and help us is really important for us, because you don't have to go to church in order to have a spiritual life. But you do have to explicitly seek out those connections to a sense of wholeness and oneness with the whole world. There is also an important interpersonal element to this too. There's two commandments in the Christian church: love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And both those things will change the way our brains are structured and make it possible for us to overcome certain kinds of mental illness, or to avoid having that kind of mental illness in the first place. Now, I'm certainly not saying that people should go to church as a solution for acute mental trauma. That definitely we have scientific experts and doctors to help with that. But I also believe too that it's an important part of our life to cultivate that sense of mystery and awe and wonder and love for other people. That's such an important part of being human and an important part of being healthy. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, California, and thank you very much for watching More Good News.